What's going on, everybody? It is your friendly finger picking buddy Sean Daniel here with Guitar Control, and today we're talking about how to use some real simple finger picking patterns to start incorporating arpeggios into your playing. We're going to do it really simple style to kind of start getting some of your fingers on your picking hand into the game. So definitely click below to grab the tab, because a lot of times fingerstyle stuff looks better when you kind of visually see everything going up and down. Okay, so we're going to do a couple different ways. We're going to do just a straight up finger style ascending arpeggio. We're going to do like a waltz, forward and backwards one, and then we're going to do more of like a percussive style too. So we got kind of three different styles going on right here. So basically all an arpeggio is when you play a chord one note at a time. And we're going to focus just on the inside four strings. So we're not going to use the low E string or the high E string. We're going to focus just on those middle four. Let's actually start out with the A minor chord, right? Really easy chord. And I like this one because the root note is the A, so it's on the A string. And now what we're going to do is we're going to start assigning fingers to the strings, okay? So your thumb is solely responsible for the low A string. Your pointer finger is owning the D string. The middle finger is getting the G string, and the ring finger is getting that B string, okay? So with the A minor chord, middle finger 2A, ring finger 2G, pointer finger 1B, we're going to start getting one note, one string at a time. Now you might be tempted to just do this all with your thumb, like A, D, G, B, A, D, G, B, which is easy, but that's the easy way out. That's lame. It's time to step up to the big leagues. We're getting these fingers involved because you have a lot more potential of what you can do once you can start getting a little independence of your fingers and your thumb with your right hand or your left hand if you're lefty, either way. So we're going to start off, just like I said, the ownership of those strings is really important. And also, too, equally as important, if not more important, is how you are approaching the strings with your hand. I really like how, if you see my thumb is kind of out ahead of your fingers more, a lot of times what might seem more comfortable or just more natural is to kind of like attack the strings on here. But in the long run, you're going to want to kind of have your thumb out a little bit more and have your fingers in so you can kind of get the strings like that. If you're out like this, it just looks uncomfortable, first of all, like your arm's like all over the place. And once you like hit that string, you have to search for it again. So what's really important is devising some kind of way that you can train your muscle memory and you can repetitively come up and down. That's why I like going this way, because every time you hit a string, it just comes straight down and it'll always go back to the right string once you practice it. If you're like this, see, now my fingers are out in space and I have to kind of find that string again. Now I've seen some players actually kind of do it that way and it works for them. Hey, whatever, that's great. There's no right or wrong way to do it if you're getting it to sound good, but I recommend doing it like this. So now we're just going to go in order through this A minor chord, A, D, G, B. So we're going to start with your thumb, pointer, middle, ring. Thumb, pointer, middle, ring. This is a really good exercise to do with a metronome, because at first it might seem a little disconjointed until you can start to get your fingers kind of in the game. That's why a metronome or a drum track or something like that is really important, because you want to start cueing your fingers to make that connection between your brain and moving the right finger. Because I think really when you're first starting out, it actually can be a lot harder than it seems to get three fingers and a thumb all on the same page in a cool way, right? So what the tab is going to show you is just the open A string, 2D, 2G, 1B. Now, a lot of times, tabs won't tell you what fingers to use. Sometimes they do, sometimes they don't. So it's good to start seeing these patterns in tab form and also being able to kind of like hit with the right strings your right fingers. That's why developing a system like just using the inner four strings right here can be really helpful. Eventually, maybe when you get more advanced, you can start assigning two strings to your thumb, like see, I'm alternating from the low A to the low E string. But right now, we're just focusing on the inner four and getting really comfortable with those four strings. So I think a good exercise to do is maybe do 4 bars of that first chord, A minor, 2, 3, 4. Then switch to a C major chord. Now my right hand isn't doing anything different. It's striking the same strings, but my left hand is responsible, my fretting hand, is responsible for applying a new chord that we're gonna hear. You go to an E minor, even a G chord. And I want to talk about this G chord for a second because this is going to be the fourth chord on that tab. That whole progression was A minor, C major, E minor, G major. Now you may be used to playing a G major chord like this, where your ring finger's on the high E string and 3rd fret, or like this, where your ring finger's on the 3rd fret of the B string. But since we're just focusing on those middle 4 strings, we can still play a G chord without even using your middle finger. So it's just 2A, open D, open G, and 3B. So that counts as a G chord, even though we don't have the root note as the lowest note. You can see this is like an inversion of the G chord, but if you're really good at making that G chord, still make a full G chord even though you're not playing, even though the low E string is kind of redundant right now. But if it's easier for you to just get to this shape right here, it's fine, doesn't really matter. A lot of times you'll still use chord shapes that you're more familiar with, even if you're not utilizing every single note that you're holding down, just because of that muscle memory, you're really comfortable with that pattern, and so on and so forth. So again, we've got 4 chords, 1 pattern, just straight up ascending. We're going from the lowest note to the highest note, A, D, G, B, throughout those 4 chords. A minor, 4 bars each. 2, 3, 4. C major, E minor, and I'm gonna play a G major just by adding my pinky to the 3rd fret of the B string. And even at the slowest tempo, whatever tempo you need to do to get this going, it can still be a challenge switching to the next chord in time, right? Now, my challenge to you would be to keep your right hand going, even if it's gonna kind of muff the beginning of the next chord. For example, if I'm going from like a C major to an E minor, and the time it takes you to get from that C major is more than 1 beat, I would much rather you keep your timing good, even at the cost of making that first note in the next bar sound kind of like off. Like if you're like, right? Like if you can't quite make it to that note on time, that's fine. Just keep your timing good because that's gonna like train better timing into your hand, and it's setting a deadline for your fretting hand to get there, and eventually you will meet that deadline and it's gonna sound great. Another thing to do is maybe just play an open string until you can get there. Both of those are really great ways to kind of continually practice your finger picking, arpeggios, or whatever kind of pattern you're doing while keeping good timing. Like for this, I'll just do all 4 of those chords, and I'll kind of hit an open string in between those chords, like A, C, E minor. You'll notice that I actually left the chord early and played an open string to get to the next one. Sounded totally fine. Nobody's gonna call you on it. That's cool. Just definitely do it that way. So that's just one straight up ascending arpeggio. Now the next thing to do is to make it go back and forth, to ascend and descend. That's something arpeggios do a lot of the time. We're gonna still stick with the same chords, but now we're gonna go 1, 2, 3, 4, 3, 2. Okay, so this is gonna be a 6 count. You can count it 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, or count it 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Definitely kind of a famous a swing right here. And what we're doing is we're going forward and backwards on that arpeggio, but pivoting on the outside of it. So what I mean by that, if we were to continually play this A minor chord, A, D, G, B, G, D, A, D, G, B, G, D. That means every time I get to the outside, the lowest or highest string of these 4 inner ones, I'm going to change directions instead of playing it twice. Some people will go like A, D, G, B, B, G, D, A. To me, that sounds more like an exercise and less musical. I like kind of pivoting on that outer note and making a 6 count arpeggio. So A, D, G, B, G, D, A, D, G, B, G, C, There already may be songs that you're reminded of by just this one arpeggio with these 4 simple chords. It kind of makes you rock back and forth. Don't fight it. Just do the rocking. It's fine. No one will judge you here. All right, so again, a really good example of changing direction. If it's kind of hard for you to focus with the chord, just do it in an open string set. It's not going to sound as musical, but it's just as good an exercise for training the muscle memory of your fingers going one note at a time and kind of changing directions, etc. Right? Now the last thing we're going to do is we're going to start combining some of the strings that we're hitting instead of doing one single note at a time. So instead of going A, D, G, B, we're going to go Now this is going to be less of an arpeggio, but it's just another example of what you can do once you start getting these other fingers involved. I'm hitting the A root of the chord and then pulling all my fingers up to get the D, G, and B string at the same time. And then, like I said, remember how the reason that you want to do this is because you can always come back in the same spot. We're going to exaggerate it and kind of get a muted hit on the strings on the way back. You can use your fingernails or your fingers, whatever sounds good. Just like that. So we've got the A, the chord, the hit, and then we have the A and the chord again. Okay? So A, chord, hit, A chord, A chord, hit, A chord, A chord, mute, A chord. C, E minor, G. All right, so a couple different exercises that you could do to really get your fingers in the game in an arpeggiated musical way. So definitely, if you have any comments, hit us up in the comment section and we'll get back to you as soon as we can. Thanks a lot. So now that you've unlocked the basics of fingerstyle guitar, definitely check out some of these other videos here because they're just going to expand everything that we talked about today and kind of bring that guitar journey into focus. And also make sure you click down here to subscribe to the channel so you get alerted when new content from guitar teachers like yours truly is posted. Thanks a lot.